Okay, we are going to get into the last part of Unit 6 today. That's Unit 6.4, and it is the final process in reverse engineering. And that's where you would actually take the product apart and the reasoning behind that. So, some things to know about this. Disassembly, it's a major step. It's almost the end part of the process. There's a little piece after this, but taking things apart is getting near the end. It uncovers how things work, which is the idea behind opening up the black box that we learned about in the previous PowerPoint. There's unknowns. Well, the unknowns will be discovered here. It's fun to take things apart if you're that kind of person. Not everybody is interested in knowing how things work, but I always like to take things apart because I was trying to discover how they worked. So it was kind of fun for me. And the other thing is that you should be keeping data while you're doing this. To gather it, most engineers would use something called a disassembly chart. And there are tons of different disassembly charts out there. So the one we're going to see, it's just an example. Okay, and these are the questions that you would be looking at to answer when you're taking stuff apart. So one of the questions may be, and just so everybody's aware, these aren't the end all questions. These are some questions that you might be asking yourself. So in this case, one of those might be, how do parts interact? That's the black box model. It's like, well, how exactly do things interact? What are the good and bad features of a product? Lots of products have this issue. There are good things about it, there are bad things about it. So reverse engineering may allow you to answer that question. They also look into things like the form, so what it looks like, if you will, and the function of the product, how it works. How does it function? You also have issues that you might be looking into. What has caused the product to be successful, meaning that nothing's gone wrong with it, or what's caused it to fail? Those are things that engineers will also look into. And it's not, in terms of how something fails, a lot of times engineers are doing investigative research to find out what failed so that it won't do it again. You may also look at appropriate materials. For a while now, the world of production has been obsessed with trying to replace metal parts with plastic. And I'd say they've had some moderate success, but not a full success in doing that. And so oftentimes these manufacturers are trying to cut production costs to make money, and they use a part or material in the part that's just not appropriate. And they may have a lot of failure. So reverse engineering would answer that question. What manufacturing process was used? Okay, I can kind of see that question being important sometimes because of money. And then the other thing is, what is the estimated cost of the product? Again, that comes down to taking things apart, finding out what the parts are made out of, how they interact, did anything succeed or fail. That comes down to an estimated cost. And again, like I said, companies are trying to make things as cheaply as possible. Sadly, most companies are doing this. And if you want a good quality product, you've got to pay more money for it. It's not the same as when in the 1960s, you could go and buy a lawnmower from certain companies, and there was no plastic on it. These machines were driven by transmissions and chains, and everything was pretty much made of metal at that point in time. You know, but it was expensive and it was costly. The process was costly for manufacturing it. Don't worry about the fact that it lasted 40 years. Yeah, so they reverse engineered these things and said, well, what can we do to actually make this thing cheaper? As we said from the beginning in this class, the dollar drives a lot of stuff. Why would we do it though? Right? So, more about that. We want to identify components and how they interact, figure out the strengths and weaknesses of parts. Sometimes things fail. Understanding the operation, and to develop computer documentation. Now, one thing you guys aren't going to do with this unit that you normally would do is I would have you pick a part of something that has been disassembled and draw it. Oftentimes, the drawings don't exist for things. And so, in order to get those to be in existence, an engineer must take a part, measure, and document that on the computer. But that's something we won't be doing. So here's some product selections. Now, the thing on the left is just a pegboard. There's not a lot to take apart there. And it's meant to come apart for purposes of learning. It's a little bit different. So I'm not exactly crazy about that. On the right-hand side is the part of the fishing pole called the reel, and that's the device that lets the line out, the fishing line out, or reels the fishing line in. So that's what you're looking at on the right-hand side. It goes on the fishing pole. Things you might use, and this list is just a small list. It doesn't mean that everything that you would ever need to take anything apart is listed here. That's not true, but they talk about things like screwdrivers, socket wrench, wire cutters, maybe if you're cutting wire off, measuring devices like a scale or a protractor, and certainly some kind of product teardown chart. And we're going to look at that today, that chart. Okay. If we were doing the Automoblocks vehicle, they're just reminding you not to destructively disassemble it. So, okay, so here's your steps. This is how this works. Now, some of this, like the computer's pretty dated here. I don't remember having a monitor like that in the classroom in a long time. But basically, this is the step-by-step process. So carefully disassembling the product, creating pictorial sketches. That goes back for you guys to the unit where we were drawing stuff by hand. So unit 2, carefully observe and measure. So that goes with your dial caliper. Now, in this picture here, you can see that somebody has a dial caliper in their hand and they're measuring something. I'm not sure what that something is, but they're measuring something. And you can see that as they're doing that, it looks like they are actually drafting that part on the computer. So it's pretty cool. Record your findings in the chart. They keep talking about this chart. We'll see it. Make annotated sketches of each part. All right. So that's still the sketch part, folks. There's 2 sections here where they're having sketches made. All of that would be done, of course, in your engineer's notebook. Compare your hypothesis to the actual operation. So think back for a second. We looked at the black box model. You were supposed to make a guess as to how things actually worked. Now you can actually see it. So there might be a comparison between your guess, your educated guess, and how it actually works. Maybe you were right on the money. Maybe you were way off on how this thing worked. Then you would do the creating of 3D solid models. So in this case, that would be this that you see here on the computer, and then documenting all of the findings. Okay. There's your product disassembly chart. Finally, it is a chart. It is not the only chart that exists. You can see here that you would be listing the product name, your date and time of working on it, group members, and then you can start by listing all the parts that you're finding. They have you try to put down dimensions. This can be kind of difficult, but overall dimensions would be kind of helpful here. How many of the part there are, what the name of the part is, maybe the type of material, if you know, your density. Whoa, wait a minute. They're actually looking for some technical stuff here. So the density is another piece of this, as is the mass or the weight. Interesting. Okay, we just talked about that in a previous unit. And we just looked at texture and finish in this unit. The other things that they might be recording here is the interaction with other parts and general notes. Is something worn out? Are there stress indicators? That kind of stuff. As an example of a stress indicator, airplane fuselages, that's the body of the airplane, are often inspected to note if there is damage to an airplane fuselage. And in fact, they are allowed to fly with certain damage that engineers know will not cause the plane to fail, interestingly enough. All right. So that's something to look into. As an example, I just found out that scientists and explorers are being allowed to go back to the Titanic to remove a section of the ship and to take the telegraph out of the ship to save it. They have done a lot of scientific investigation into the Titanic, how it broke into the pieces it broke into, how it landed where it landed. All of that stuff was based on disassembly and assembly of the ship and trying to figure out how it ended up, where it ended up, and why it looked the way it looked. That is reverse engineering, believe it or not. So it's kind of interesting. You may not be filling out a chart for it, but you can go online now and watch all kinds of computer simulations that are probably very close to showing you what happened and why that ship sank the way it did. So questions, again, reiteration of this slide is coming at you. Things like the parts interaction, good and bad versus form and function. What has it done to succeed or fail? Appropriate materials, manufacturing, and cost. So we've already seen this slide. They're reiterating it because it's a part of reverse engineering. And this is the final product. And it's pretty well put together. So the Zebco Spincast 404 SE was disassembled by students. And this is their final example of it. So you can see that they pulled out all of the parts. As I'm looking at the examples, most of the major or large parts have been computer drafted. They have little informational sections about each of the little parts, so you can kind of see what's going on. So here's the situation. We could always see the outside of the body, the top, the bottom, the crank, the adjustment wheel, the thumb release. That was always there. But what was going on inside was the black box. So all of this stuff that you see here is really kind of what we were after. The 3, the 4, all of these parts that seem to be part of, I guess, number 6, if you will. They're identifying some of that. That was the black box mystery. What was actually going on inside? So this was a really good idea in terms of a reverse engineering project that wasn't overly complex. Here's another one of a rocket launcher. Not so much of a black box model here because you can kind of see through the plastic a little bit, but there was stuff inside that was allowing this to launch the rocket, which is item number 4 that you can see there. And again, all of these pieces were measured, documented, recorded, and drafted on the computer so that you could see what they would look like on a 3D modeling program. So pretty well done for what it is. More simplistic than the reel itself. Tape dispenser. Yeah, again, very simplistic. Not a whole lot of black box mystery going on there. But you can see that there was enough parts there for them to take it apart and document and record everything. So the point is this, is that when you do this, you're really kind of looking at a lot of different things. The black box model might not really be a tremendous mystery to you. You might be able to see pretty much everything. But again, you're looking at these questions and trying to address them. So that's the idea behind reverse engineering. All right. So based on that information, all right, you guys will be now taking a Google Forms quiz on some of the information from the PowerPoint. So you're going to probably want to have this video accessible so that you can look up the answers as you go through the process of answering the questions. All right. I will see you guys later.